We've all got hobbies. We've all got those things outside work and, the family responsibilities that sit in our mind and take us places where we just do it for the joy of it. But sometimes those hobbies can take us to dark places that we shouldn't really go. So here's the question for you. How far would you let your hobby quest take you? Enjoy.
The people, William, of the Victorian era.
Oh, cool.
They had many quirks.
Big moustaches, big hats,
Yeah.
enormous dresses, horse and carriage.
Look, some of that would just be called clothing and transport. I don't know if you call those quirks.
Okay, all right.
You're being unkind to our Victorian cousins. Look at them with their pants and their ways of getting around.
Yeah, fair enough.
But they also had, beyond quirks, obsessions. And I know you know this. You've told me many Victorian obsessions. And they're into weird things. Like one of them, death and public executions. These things were quite intriguing to such folk.
Yeah, well, they'd probably be intriguing to us. I wouldn't want to go. I'm just saying that I know that there would be folk in society now who would still be down for a bit of public execution. Horrible, but death, it's not like death isn't a morbid fascination for us now too.
Yeah, fair. So we're Victorians. Taxidermy?
Yeah, that's gross. That's freaking weird. That is freaking weird.
Oh, they were really into it. Freak shows?
Yeah.
The occult got really big there at the time. And look, basically they were really into anything othery, anything exotic. They were even more so maybe than we are because they didn't have the intertube.
Yeah, they would have loved podcasts back then.
Oh, God, yeah.
They'd be in, give me some weird stuff podcast.
Do you know what's going to happen though? There are time machines coming and we can send this one back to them.
I'm doing it already.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Just Queen Victoria gets to listen to the wholesome show.
And they'd probably think it was some kind of seance though. Ghosts of the future. There's something you don't hear much. There's an obsession that I'd never heard about till I started reading about this episode. Fishing flies.
An obsession with fishing flies.
You know, the flies that you use, you kind of go whoop, 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 whoop on the water.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
And the trouts and the salmons go yum.
Yeah, okay, no, I get it. But they got to the point of obsessed with them?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, God, yes. So natural history was all the rage back then, and we know this. But a subset of gentlemen, some of them became utterly infatuated with this art which came to be known. Victorian salmon fly tying.
Okay.
You know, you've heard it.
Victorian salmon fly tying.
We've all read the books, seen the movie. So all around this Victorian world, fishing hooks were elaborately decorated. I mean elaborately decorated. I'll show you a picture in a little bit. Brilliantly coloured feathers, bits of fur and specialty threads.
Yes.
Like they went off. So they're almost like jewellery, but, with a fish hook in it.
And jewellery that you chuck into the water to catch fish.
Ish. They were very ornamental, really pretty, and could cost a frickin' mozza. Like in today's dollars, some of them, the ingredients, etc., could cost thousands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, super
thousands.
Expensive. Yeah, in today's money. So back then, that's
I know that people spend money on their hobbies.
Yeah,
but
yeah. You kind of pointed to this a moment ago. You'd assume the point of this elaborate fly tying was to catch the biggest sucker possible, the biggest fish you get your hands on.
Yeah, the tastiest.
Yeah,
the most glorious.
Bigger is always better.
Okay,
not in the fish world. You need the in-betweens. Biology is about optimum, not maximum.
I don't know what you're saying there.
No. But the problem was, or rather not the problem, the interesting thing was the people who were obsessed with flies almost invariably or very frequently weren't even fisher folk. They didn't fish.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, mine is too good. Oh, this is like the people that collect the toys but keep them in the boxes.
The toilets?
No, you buy like the brand new Optimus Prime or something like that, and you keep it inside the cellophane wrap or something.
It's too good to play with.
Yeah, exactly. So I just do the flies. I'm not interested in actually using them.
Like for the toys, I'm like, you don't understand what toys are for. Or do the smart thing, buy two. Play with one. You got to play with your Steve Austin action $6 million man figure, and the other one stares from its screen going.
Collecting is a really hard place for me.
You don't like objects?
No, I don't. Well, look, there's a bit of my brain that I have suppressed a lot.
You like them too much.
Yeah.
You're an addict.
As a kid, I could understand all of this. Like I'd be like all over that. I'd love to, have the giantest, all of the Transformers, and you have them all, and you look at them, and you sit there, and you have some for playing and some for looking. I understand that.
So you realised if you bought one,
that's
infinities tomorrow.
Yeah, there's no stopping.
Yeah, I understand. There's no way to get two. I'm like that with some things. So, they didn't generally tend to be fisher folk. Also, the idea basically of dropping one of their elaborate collaborations into the water seemed crazy. Better yet, having a fish.
This one's not waterproof. This is not a waterproof one. What are you doing here?
Insects aren't waterproof. These are allegedly mimicking insects. Well, they're not really. And of course, the most exotic of these, because like in any game when people are competing, the stakes go up.
Okay.
So you needed the most exquisite, exotic materials to make these flies. So super fancy threads, unusual bits of fur, and also exotic and rare feathers.
Okay.
These were particularly popular.
Uh-huh.
So today, for example, because people still do it, the cream of the crop of one of these flies, like I was saying, could cost you literally thousands. Just to buy the elements to make it could cost you a few $1,000s.
Okay.
And I've got a link to a website here that actually there's the 25 steps to make this particular fly. And I'm like, oh my God. And I watched the first 3 pictures and went, I just don't care anymore.
You stopped?
It's like first you get this little string and you wind cautiously like you're making some kind of radio transmitter coil with a fishing line around the thing. And it's like, and that still barely does anything.
You've been a maker in the past. You could get back into making.
I have made.
Yeah.
One has created. So yeah, they wanted really eccentric stuff, or at least, exotic stuff, and it could cost a lot. So you can imagine some of the folks would be tempted to go to unusual lengths to get themselves mega flies.
What are we talking here? What are we talking?
So I'm going to tell you now. So as you ask, how far did they go?
Yeah.
Or would people go? Strap in and I shall let you know.
Welcome to The Wholesome Show, the podcast that exotically tickles the whole of science. I'm Will Grant.
I'm Rod Lamberts, and I am not into fly tying, but I could be convinced and dissuaded.
I'm down with beautiful objects, though. No,
just not owning them or having them in your house.
No, they belong in a museum.
They do.
Like a beautiful object?
You're Harrison Ford. They belong in a museum.
No, look, no, I will allow some beautiful objects. I just get scared that I'll turn around
For example,
and I'm a hoarder. And
you do have 3 hats behind you.
I know.
I am worried about you.
And I got a delivery of a weird, beautiful object that I am looking forward to. So I do like an occasional weird, beautiful object. I just get scared.
Just making notes.
I get scared that I will turn around and I am crawling over piles of newspaper to go to the toilet.
That's how it happens.
Do you
know the other way to go to the toilet? You don't crawl over the newspaper. You go through the door.
No. This is what I'm worried about. I'm deeply worried. Like, you see those shows about hoarders?
Oh, I'm fascinated. Them and hugely fat people.
But they worry me. That worries me. It's scary.
Poo in a bag, seal it up, and throw it in what used to be the lounge room.
No, that's fine. It's the hoarding that worries me.
It could be hoarding poo or paper clips. You're equally disgusted. Sorry, I plead the fifth. He's taken the fifth.
Not quite equally, but it's close. It's close.
So a lot of what I'm going to tell you comes from, it's snippets from a book by a guy called Kirk Wallace Johnson, or particularly interviews with him and chats about it. I'm not going to tell you the title of the book yet because it'll just ruin the surprise.
Cool, I get it.
But we'll get to it at the end. So an interview with Johnson begins talking about his background. How did he come to this kind of material? Mm-hmm. So he really needed apparently to find a way to unwind after he'd been involved in quite heavy work. And I don't mean lifting objects.
It's just stressful.
Very stressful.
He's a stressful day job and he needs a hobby that will,
like he served in Iraq with the US Agency for International Development in Baghdad and then Fallujah.
Yeah, okay.
And he was the first agency, the first coordinator for the reconstruction.
So there's bombs going off, there's people dying, there's, I understand.
Hugs on every corner.
You want to unwind.
Yeah. So he came home and he said, look, the only way I could escape and get some calm in my mind was to go fly fishing. Mm. I mean, obviously, it's the meditation of murder sports.
Look.
Everyone calls it that.
It's beautiful. I'm not a fishing person.
No, a fishster.
But I do like eating fish. But the idea of standing in a river and it's just completely calm, that it does look amongst the most meditative of your killing sports.
I was obsessed with it as a young teenager when we'd go and visit the coast, as all Canberrans did, and fishing off the rocks, mesmerised by it. Loved it.
Had a little bit of extreme sports. You could die fishing off the rocks and there you go.
Look, we had a crack a few times. The problem was then catching them. I'm like, I don't want to kill it, Dad.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't like killing.
Oh.
I act like I do. Obviously, I'm a tough guy, but actually I don't like killing. So Johnson goes on. He was in northern New Mexico and he'd hired a guide, and the guide was saying, okay, I'm going to open up my fly box, and he pulled out a Victorian salmon fly that he'd tied himself.
Still around?
They make them today.
Okay, so it's a Victorian design. Okay.
Yeah.
So not an antique 150-year-old fly, but...
I don't believe so, although he did not specify. I don't think you keep that in your tackle box.
I have no idea.
No. Well, you keep it in special, like teak tackle box in your smoking room with your cigars and wines. So Johnson says, look, I'd never seen anything like it. Like, he was totally stunned. And so he's having a chat with the guide, and the guide tells him some stories. In particular, a story about a young and now infamous fly tyer.
Okay.
A fella called Edwin Rist. That's R-I-S-T, not wrist as in the thing what lets your hand wiggle around.
Okay, fair enough.
So, the story of Edwin Rist via Mr. Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1989, so we're talking, today's dollars. He was described as studious and intelligent, homeschooled by parents who bred Labradoodles.
So they described him as studious and intelligent?
No, the Labradoodles did. They were in New York City when they were doing this. He apparently, beyond his own parents, had quite a good brain, very good with his hands, and also a flute prodigy.
Oh, okay.
Which again sounds to me like an old school euphemism for something else, but it's not.
No, it doesn't.
But it's not.
They just play the flute.
Plays the flute, but prodigy-like, not prodigiously, prodigiously.
That's prodigiously.
No, prodigiously means a lot. Prodigy means good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, you got me there.
Yeah.
You got me there.
About time I had a win. When he was around 10, he saw a video about fly tying, and apparently he was mesmerized. He's like, oh, this is even better than fluting. So he apparently ransacked the house and was hunting for materials. He had to start tying his own ties. Like, this is on.
Yeah, okay.
I'm doing it.
How old was he?
10. Around 10.
Oh, like 10-year-olds get obsessions.
They do. So he's definitely already starting to become obsessed, like straight off the bat into it. So he started doing trout flies, but apparently they're fairly ugly and brown, and they're supposed to look like actual insects, and you use them. Hang on.
So just point of order here.
Yeah.
We have flies that are specific to different fish.
Yeah.
So what kind of like so they're eating different types of insect is what we're saying here, and you're mimicking the insect.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
trout flies are ugly,
but that's if you're using them. And there's a line between people who use them and people who just make them beautiful.
Okay, fair enough. But all right.
Trout flies in comparison, they're kind of brown and frumpy. They're just like, some bug that would land on the surface of a river somewhere because you want them to actually eat it.
How lame. I know,
right? What a loser.
But if you're not using them, why not just go wild anyway?
I don't know.
And put a hook in like a pile of gaudy garbage and go, look, I made a fly. And it's like, it's not going to catch anything.
Add like a mechanical noise-making machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and
exactly.
Goes, explodes maybe on impact. So he then started going to conferences and competing in fly tying festivals around New England. So this guy's all in. At one of the shows, he came across a master salmon fly tyer.
Of course.
And this guy had apparently... Obi-Wan Kenobi tyer. He apparently had 60 or so shockingly beautiful flies. Shocking. I'm shocked at the beauty. It's made me a little bit...
Look, I am anticipating looking at some of these pictures now, and I better be shocked.
Oh, you'll be amazed.
No, I want to be shocked.
You'll be shocked.
I don't care about amaze. I want to...
You may actually lose continence.
I want to...
From every place you can discontinize.
I want it to feel like a horror movie. Like I want to feel a heart attack straight away at how beautiful these things are.
Oh, I think you're going to be let down.
I assumed I was going to be let down because...
I feel terrible.
I have never thought that shockingly beautiful would fit into overlapping with fish fly.
No, who would?
In my mind.
Neither would I. This is news to me too. So apparently these flies employed up to a dozen species of bird feathers wrapped in intricate patterns. So heaps of bird feathers wrapped in intricate patterns. And apparently this is when something switched in young Rist's brain. He started to take lessons to master the craft. And apparently he was fucking good at it.
Yeah.
This guy was good. And he started to dream about being able to tie the old recipes. They called them recipes for how to tie.
The old recipes. Like he wants to go back. He's like Heston Blumenthal.
150-year-old. Yep.
I'm gonna do the recipes from 1500. Yep. He's doing.
Yep. But the recipes are for flies. So I don't know why they decided or fell upon calling them recipes, but they did.
Oh, fair enough.
So it's a recipe. So he was obsessed. This is what he wanted to do. And then his obsession went further and he was like, this is excellent, but I don't have the authentic feathers.
Okay.
They don't have the feathers.
Okay, cool.
That's fine.
No, I'm worried now.
No, it's fine. Look, I'll show you a picture now because I've made you wait too long. This is what I'm about to talk about. I think it's Major Traherne's Chatterer.
That is,
It's pretty amazing.
I'm not quite down with shockingly beautiful, but I'm up there on. Yeah, that is an interesting object.
It's colourful and delicious. There's no question. Like it's engaging to look at.
Yeah, yeah. And if I was a salmon, chomping that fucker like 100%.
You'd be too shocked. Too shocked to eat.
No, I wouldn't. I'd be shocked out of. I'd be hungry. I'd be hungry. Look at all those colours. They look like tasty colours.
Christ, I'm hungry now. Do you need to stop and get a snack?
That's a very nice fly.
Yeah, like they're quite remarkable. And when you see them, a whole bunch of them all lined up, you're kind of like, oh, okay. They are pretty to look at. You know, I'd buy the fly T-shirt.
Yeah, no, a fly T-shirt, that's cool. And if you are on holiday and you happen to walk into, a small town and you walk into the fly fishing museum and you go, they are pretty to look at. And then you go and have lunch.
Yes.
I'm sorry to knock your hobby here. This is beautiful.
You're not it's not my hobby.
All right,
I'm going to be
hobby.
okay. I reckon some people would have pretty amazing tattoos of some of those though. They'd look amazing as a sleeve.
Oh, look,
flies,
of course they would. I mean, anything that's an object like that. Like I think the interesting thing, this is clearly nature is producing something awesome that is designed to be looked at.
Yeah.
We spoke very recently about Dazzle. There is the black and white stripes there. Nature is producing bright colours there that are designed to make the ladybirds horny.
Yes.
And so obviously that's cross species.
Yes.
So nature's done that, and then we've gone and recipe'd it up into something that's even more.
We've improved nature again.
We've murdered the boy bird.
Once again, we've improved nature.
Taken his clothes.
Yep.
And put them in an elaborate pattern with a nice nasty.
Keep them in a box
with a sharp spike there.
Yeah. So they can kill something else as well, maybe.
Suck it, boy birds.
Fuck, we're good. What do humans do? The shittest stuff you can think of. That's our job. Make it worse. So he couldn't get the feathers, right? He's like, where are the feathers? How do I get the authentic feathers? I cannot make a recipe without the right ingredients.
Yeah, I need some dodo.
Yes, exactly.
This one needs the head of a dodo and the teeth of a saber-toothed tiger.
Yep. And the feet of a dog.
And a mastodon.
Very topical. So he started to hang out online with the fly tying communities.
Of course he did.
And the Facebook
started.
His first time ever online was looking at flies. So he's hanging out with these people on the internet. And it turns out all these people are completely nuts about rare feathers because they want to recreate these Victorian recipes too. And the language they use is the language of addiction and obsession. They're like, I just must have, they're really,
of course.
They are hungry.
Yeah, you're on a hobby quest.
Yeah.
And it becomes something more than work. It becomes really important to you.
Yeah, very important. And they're almost, as one source puts it, they have observe an almost religious adherence to 19th century texts written by the English, by people like, these are two classics, I'm sure you've heard these names, George Kelson or Major John Popkin Traherne, who I'm sorry, George, whatever your name is.
Popkin. But Major Popkin is the one that I'm going to first.
Yeah.
Like if there are the two books of Victorian fly fishing, they're sitting on the shelf, Major Popkin, that sounds awesome. That sounds so Victorian. Queen Victoria had that one. She's all over that.
This is Major Popkin. Well, actually, Major Traherne. So he's one of the most famous flies he's done and infamous in this community is the Chatterer, that was a representation of. And it has so many feathers from what the fly tyers call the blue Chatterer that they are quite scarce. And you could at the moment, or at least, early 2000s, need about $2,000 to get the goods.
Yeah, wow.
To make one.
So
not to buy one, to make one.
The blue Chatterer does exist, and we do have systems for gathering blue Chatterer feathers.
It appears so.
Oh, nice.
Systems is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Channels. Mm-hmm. Let's say channels. So interestingly, though, it turns out these flies don't look like anything the salmons would normally see in nature.
No, okay.
That's
why they're suddenly hungry.
Well, no, apparently they don't give a shit either. They'll eat anything that looks vaguely like an insect. They don't care if it's colourful or brown. They're like, fucking great, I'm hungry. Let's get into it. So they don't care.
So this has nothing to do with the salmon anymore.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like another sort
See, here I'm thinking this is triggering salmon psychology. You've got the salmon whisperer who's got down into the salmon's brain. Has got like it's going to have to be some combination of bluey yellow, orange stripes, some black and white. That will make the salmon shit its pants.
Tiny thin orange to make them incontinently hungry.
They will go out of control. They will murder each other to get there. No, doesn't matter.
No, don't care. I won't have the brown one. It's closer.
So this is just a bunch of blokes.
Yeah.
Probably blokes, let's assume.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say blokes.
Not all.
There might be the occasional non-bloke, but not many. So someone says, look, the salmon can't tell the difference between a spangled Katinga plume and a cat's hairball. Neither could I, because I don't know. Maybe a spangled Katina plume looks like Katinga.
It's a made-up bird.
They're all made up. The names, they're not born with those. We make the names.
That's true.
I know, right?
Well, okay, it's a made-up name that is not associated with an actual bird.
Look, I don't know. But apparently the overwhelming majority of 21st century fly ties, like wrist, no idea how to fish. It's just all about bragging rights. It's like, look how awesome my spangled Katinga is. So just a short but relevant digression. Speaking of obsession with feathers and birds and natural phenomena, Alfred Russel Wallace.
Hey.
You'd know Wallace, the acclaimed British naturalist, explorer, geographer, anthropologist, biologist, etc., etc. He independently came up with a theory of evolution without Chuckles.
Rival to Charles Darwin, yes.
But Charles was apparently far more strongly self-promoting, etc. And
hey, don't say that.
Got the thing. You got to self-promote. I mean, not that we would do that. We would never stoop, but others. So he was also an obsessed man, not with fly tying, but particularly birds and feathers, as well as beetles and all kinds of crap. He was right into all of it, collecting for research, furthering knowledge. That was his gig.
He ain't a hobbyist. He's serious.
No. Oh, he's very serious. So in 1854, or from 1854, he spent 8 years, they'd call it in the Malay area, Malaysia and Indonesia today.
Yep.
Looking at wildlife, paddling around in rivers, and particularly looking after one of the most sought-after creatures of the day, the bird of paradise.
Looking for the bird. Yeah, look, the bird of paradise is a glorious-looking bird.
Yeah, I got a picture of one.
Like if one was to be a taxidermist,
yes,
then that would be
murder and stuff. Them.
That would be the trophy bird, I would say.
Well, this one's a shitty picture of
that is not a bird of paradise.
No, that's the king bird of paradise, which is the one he was particularly into.
Why has it got a feather hanging backwards?
Like a little microphone or a spotlight over its head.
It's got its feathers on backwards.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But it's kooky. I mean, look at it. Someone just said, we've got a bunch of different colours left over. Put them all on this bird.
Those blue feet are some fancy blue feet.
Aren't they?
That is. Look, I don't love the bird. The proportions aren't quite right. I am not
into deformed birds.
If I was to draw it is wacky, that is for sure.
Yeah.
Why does it have a microphone hanging over its head?
I think it's to attract the ladies.
Of course it's to attract the ladies. No, maybe, or something else. I don't know.
Caterpillars.
Yeah. Like the caterpillars getting transferred.
They love a reading light.
Or maybe it's a hypnosis sort of little thing.
I can't talk anymore.
It's like an anglerfish. You know, the anglerfish have the light above their head.
Back then, not really that well known. And he was, in fact, one of the first Western naturalists to see the kingbird in the wild. It's off some islands off the coast of New Guinea.
Yep.
So the male, as we've just looked at, and there'll be a picture up, the male has a brilliant red back, white breast, long tail feathers at the end, which look like two coin-shaped iridescent emerald feathers, apparently the emerald. Anyway, they look pretty cool. So by the time he'd left the area, the Malayish and New Guinean area, he'd collected more than 125,000 specimens. So he's murdered and boxed a lot of things.
So okay, scientists. Yes, you want to get some sort of statistical pattern, so you can't just get one.
No, you need more than 100,000.
Oh my God. When do you stop? When do you just keep getting more?
You stop at 125,000.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, Wallace has taught us nothing if he hasn't taught us that.
How many were there in the wild? I'm guessing 126,000.
Yes, probably. I mean, these weren't only these birds. He also these are all kinds of critters: beetles, butterflies, birds.
All right, okay.
5 species of the bird of paradise.
So he's getting Noah. He's getting 2 of each, and that's all.
More than 2, but he's getting a bunch of a lot.
What is his suitcase's back like? Like heading back to London or whatever, and he's got suitcases full of 125,000 dead birds.
Yeah, you got the wrong question. I've got nothing I shouldn't declare. So, 5 species from the bird of paradise family. That's just one of the many, but he collected not just one of them. He had a few of each. Like there were tens of them. So some of the stuff that he'd accumulated went to private collectors. He sold them. But in 1873, he sold his personal stash of 2,500 exotic bird specimens, which a lot of this would include like bird skins, with their feathers on and stuff, but skins, because that's how they look in the wild. And he sold them to the Natural History Museum in London. But they ended up at a branch of this museum 30 miles away in a city known as Tring. And the branch of this museum was called the Tring.
Okay.
There's a reason for this.
First of all, famed naturalist,
Yeah.
goes hunting in exotic parts,
Yeah.
brings back a fuckload of exotic, beautiful looking birds, and you go, cool, that's for our B grade museum. That's for the number 2 museum. You can't get into the good museum with that.
No, there are reasons. Apparently during the Blitz, the main museum got bombed like 28 times. And so someone stashed all this stuff in a truck and went, fuck, get them out of here.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
And they stayed. So, but this museum was recently acquired by the National Museum, but it used Rothschild money.
Oh, okay.
So
in fairness, a lot of museums do.
Yeah, they all do, yeah. And so it also, that museum not only having all of Wallace's, or heaps of Wallace's stuff, it has the largest zoological collection amassed ever by one human, which was Lionel Walter Rothschild, Lord himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He had a huge collection of just all kinds of zoological stuff.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we've spoken about collectors before.
Yeah.
And I think we've barely even scratched the sides of that.
Yeah.
I assume once you get into a lot of money, you go, well, what am I going to do? I might as well
Collect stuff.
kill it and put it in my house.
Yeah. Or I'll get a garage and I'll buy every Ferrari.
Yeah.
Because
I want to know the difference.
Yeah, this one's wheels slightly smaller.
Maybe don't.
No, I agree. So he apparently spent most, if not a large share at least, of the family fortune collecting, basically trying to get everything that ever lived.
I've never gotten around to telling the story, but you know one of Darwin and Wallace's contemporaries was the guy that wanted to eat one of everything.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Hats off. That is an awesome.
There was a
awesome
Marlon
challenge.
Brando movie with Matthew Broderick where they were trying to do that, and Matthew Broderick was charged, I think, with bringing.
Marlon Brando.
Yeah, I know, and I think his job was to bring. It was like a freaking kimono dragon or something, like in a New York cab to this exotic dining club.
Oh God.
Very obscure movie. I watched it years ago. I was like, that was odd. But they're trying to eat exotic weird shit. So Lionel Rothschild was also a hint on the eccentric side.
No.
Amazing. I know. Amazing. So he collected kangaroos, dingoes, cassowaries, giant tortoises, and they would roam around the grounds of his ancestral seat.
Yeah.
You just let a cassowary roll around. I mean, that's what you do. It's smart. They're very tame. He also trained a bunch of zebras and rode one to Buckingham Palace. Or sorry, he had a carriage drawn by zebras. He rode to Buckingham Palace once.
No, that's cool. That's not eccentric. It's just I've got enough zebras and I feel like this would be a nice way to arrive. So
and they seem bored.
Yeah.
Let's give them some training. So his menagerie, basically everything they get their hands on, was ultimately stuffed, mounted, and encased in floor-to-ceiling displays in this gallery of the Tring, including like bears, crocodiles, and even, unfortunately, domestic dogs and other such things. But he basically, stuffed them, mounted them in the Tring. Also, though, the Tring is the second largest ornithological collection of birds, collection in the world.
Oh, okay.
Like even to date. I don't know what the first one is before you ask because
let's assume even today, I don't think that title has changed or will change.
Seems unlikely.
I think the glory days of catching shit and stuffing it full of peanuts and putting it on display
Peanuts
has passed.
Peanuts.
I don't know what they put in them.
Soybeans now.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
More...
I don't know what they put in them, but I think the high point of that might have been in this sort of era that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Or the low point, whatever it is.
We have peaked. Yes, we've reached peak.
I don't think there are many scientists now who put in their grant funding application, I want to get 125,000 things and
murder them
and bring them back.
I want to mount the beetles.
I want to check if species X is going extinct by killing all of them and then seeing how they're going.
Scientific whaling. How will we understand how many of them are left if we don't murder a bunch to check? So all these creatures are there in the Tring, but the Tring has this giant ornithological collection. It basically has 95% of all known bird species, like 750,000 examples of
That's
different
amazing.
birds. Yep. And they are, of course, stored in metal drawers labelled with scientific names and in storerooms off limits to the public.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't want the public to see them.
Fuck no, that's not what it's for.
No, it's to have them.
Exactly. True collectors. So that's a little bit of history, which is great, right? That's great. I'm glad, you didn't question me. What's it got to do with a 22-year-old American fly tire guy living in New York?
Well, now I'm worried.
Nothing. No, it does. So you remember how he was not only a fly guy, he was very into the flute.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Did
So
he continue in that?
Yeah, it kind of became his day job, and he went to London to study at the Royal Academy of Music to play the flute, which is very expensive.
Sure.
So his family weren't super wealthy, even though the Labradoodle business is obviously worth bajillions.
Yeah, there's a limit though.
Yeah. And Rist also realised if he wanted to be a truly competitive flute guy, he'd need a really good flute. And like I Googled really good flutes.
That's what you typed in?
Safe search on 25 grand plus. Like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
No, any musical instrument, if you type in really good in front of it, it puts a zero or 2 zeros.
And that's what I was
end.
looking for. Like, okay, what are we talking? So 25K at least. And he started to think, that's too much money. How can I make some money? Then he had an inspiration. I'll break into the tring. I'll steal a bunch of exotic feathers and I'll sell them to the online fly tying community.
Oh my God.
Genius.
No.
Genius. I mean, that is thinking.
No.
That is a man with a big brain, studious and intelligent. The Heist. So he starts off. He writes a letter to the Tring, posing. He uses a fake name and he says, I'm a student photographer. Can I have access to the place?
Okay.
Permission granted.
Okay.
Time to case the joint.
That's not a hard ask.
Not really. I'm a museum.
I doubt they're on the lookout for this.
You wouldn't expect these guys.
And photographers, sure, do some wildlife photography with your taxidermy. It's something.
Not insane. So he jumps on a train, about 45-minute ride from London, goes to the Tring. Took shitloads of photos of many of the birds, but also the hallways, the locations of cabinets, and the entry and exit points. He's casing the place. So over the next few months, he plans his heist, and he cunningly saved it in a Word document called Plan for Museum Invasion.
I know that a lot of crimes these days are solved by just looking through someone's Google search.
Yes.
Google search and it's like how do I execute my husband? Like, dude, don't.
Murder weapons cheap. Like, what are you doing?
You got to go to the library here. You got to go old school on your research.
Or you say, hey mate, can I borrow your phone?
Yeah, fair enough.
So he also, on this plan for museum invasion .doc, he had a shopping list of things he'd need. So like a diamond glass cutter,
okay,
a wire cutter, thousands of Ziploc bags to sell the stuff to the fly tyers.
Yeah, okay.
And a pair of latex gloves he stole from his doctor because you can't buy those.
No, that would be impossible. Well, you got
What's
to get a taste,
that over there?
You got to get a taste for stealing, and then
That's true. He's warming up.
Yeah,
You got to love the doctor's like, yoink, I got these for free. So there's a great National Geographic story on this that also involves interviews with the original author of the book. So the night of June 23, 2009, Rist does a concert in London. Then he gets on a train, toddles off to the Tring.
This is beautiful though. The idea of the concert flautist weaving into the cat burglar.
Yeah.
This is just beautiful,
Isn't it? Like he's a movie star. So when he arrives, he drags his empty suitcase, but some sources say it's a duffel bag and a backpack, but I think suitcase is funnier. It varies. He drags it up a dark alley that runs behind the museum. He climbs up, snips away barbed wire, and then tries to cut glass away from a window, which didn't work. So he smashes it with a rock instead. He's like, fuck it. Practical. He then wedges the suitcase and or duffel bag backpack through the opening, climbs in, and he was there for 4 hours stealing 299 bird skins.
Wow.
Bits and pieces. 4 hours. 299.
I assume it's not the first 299 he finds. He's looking for the good ones.
Oh, he's picking. He's picking. Yeah, because he's got a fly tying community to titillate. And apparently he lost track of time so badly that he missed the last train back to London.
He was catching the train?
Yeah, it's all on the train. Because who would suspect you?
I just don't want to do any of my crimes and rely on public transport.
Damn it, it's late again.
I just feel that you don't want to be caught in that moment of going, I got to wait for the train.
I got to wait for the 231 via Bristol. So he had to spend the night a few miles away from the crime scene with his, depending on the estimates, maybe up to $1 million worth of bird stuff in a suitcase.
Wow.
And he was very selective with the pilfering, as you suggested. So he left the adult male drab stuff. He left the juveniles and the female stuff. He focused on things like quetzals from South America, and cotingas.
Mm-hmm.
Bowerbirds from India, crows, birds of paradise that Alfred Wallace had shipped.
Crows. You couldn't possibly get crows anywhere.
Indian crows, though. Apparently they're different.
Oh, okay. India.
Yeah, and
you get them in India.
Well, he's not in India. He's in England. They're different. They're more than a train ride away. So some of Wallace's birds of paradise stuff, etc., from New Guinea, he flogs those as well. Why was it so easy?
Because they had never thought anyone would try and steal this stuff before.
Hey.
And they didn't have security.
No, there was a security guard.
Yeah.
There's a Natural Geographic article. But he didn't find wrist that night. I'm like, yes, I'm getting that.
I think a little bit of napping.
Now, apparently an alarm went off in a different part of the museum, but the guard didn't hear that. And I love the quote, there's dispute over whether he was watching a soccer match at the time, which of course the museum emphatically denies.
This is late at night.
Well, yeah, it's not in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did he get away with it?
Well, I doubt it because currently he's being talked about. Are you saying he's live, living somewhere on the lam with his loot of bird feathers? He's like Smorg, and he's got a giant pile of bird feathers that are worth millions of dollars. No, he's in jail. Of course, he's in jail. He did not get away with it.
Yeah, so he got busted. It took months for the museum to even notice the bird skins were stolen.
That's the big gap here. I assume it would be.
Yeah, the broken window.
I mean, in your broken window, you go, okay, something happened. But then you go, all right, we got thousands and thousands and thousands of drawers. Who's checking them? No one's checking them.
No, because they're safe. It's secure, and no one's looking at them because they're just for having. So when the museum finally found out that, they were freaked out. Like, holy shit, what's going on? So at the time this was happening, Richard Lane, who's the director of science at the museum, he's declared the skins were of immense historical importance.
Yeah, sure.
These birds are extremely scarce. And they're scarce in collections, better yet in the wild. At all, very rare. Our utmost priority, he says, is working with the police to return these specimens to the national collections so they can be used by future scientists, future generations.
Yeah, I get it. That's why you collect.
Exactly.
For the future.
For the future.
Someday, someone might want this.
Not for the now?
No one wants them now.
But just for the
in the future, maybe.
For the holding.
No, that's fair enough.
So eventually, it seems like a long time later, months and months later, a detective starts cruising the online fly tying forums, which I think is amazing. Like, what a connection to make.
Look, a whole bunch of birds goes missing. What do you think? I'm thinking straight away, okay, weird fetishist or there's some sort of money. Where would the money be? And it would track back to fly fishing, I think, pretty quickly.
I do wonder. I mean, because it's not really an investigation I've undertaken myself, nor thought about. So, he starts looking around and he gets onto some of the forums, and he finds out that some of these feathers came from the stolen birds or the bird skins. So after 15 months of investigation, Rist was arrested at his apartment in London and charged with being the mastermind of this crime. The evidence? He was surrounded by Ziploc bags jammed with thousands of iridescent feathers and cardboard boxes that held what remained of the skins.
I told you, should have put him in his bed, like Smorg. He could just lie on them.
No, he's laying at all these delicious feathers and going, this one's going to be a chun.
Oh, look, I believe it.
He confessed immediately.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
They're not mine.
This is my flatmates.
Yeah, I'm minding them for a friend. They're not mine. What are you talking about? These? No, they're here when I moved in.
Not touching them.
They were here when I moved in. I don't know what you're talking about. So he goes to court in 2011, so it's a couple of years later. He pleads guilty to burglary and money laundering.
I'm surprised at the money laundering. I get the burglary.
Yeah, but he never served jail time. So he was ordered to pay £125,000 under the Proceeds of Crime Act because that's the amount they estimate he made by selling skins and feathers and stuff online.
Okay.
Like forums as well as eBay and places like that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he had a 12-month jail sentence, which was suspended for 2 years, and a supervision order for 12 months. So I don't know what that means, but it's English. English law must be serious.
He's kind of in trouble, but he's not in jail.
Yeah. And he was ordered to pay back the money. So he had about £13,500 ready to pay, and he had 6 months to pay the rest. If he didn't do so, he was supposed to go to jail.
I assume he's not allowed to pay the rest by selling some more. Selling a little bit more.
I don't see that specified, so you can see him going, I know what I'll do.
Surely he's got to give all of them back.
I'll rob a different place. We can't necessarily give them all back because he sold a bunch of them.
Yeah, I know, but give the ones he's got back. And then other people are in trouble because they're possession of stolen goods. I get that's harder to get.
Imagine that, because he didn't sell the whole skins. Like, he pulled the feathers out, so people will be like, no, I got this feather elsewhere.
Well.
It's not like they're microchipped. So it'll be very hard to prove if you burst in it.
You wait. In the future, all feathers will be on the blockchain, and then we'll know.
Non-fudgeable ticklers. So his lawyer argues because he's obviously in danger of going to prison. This is not going to work. So his lawyer argued that he had Asperger's syndrome, at least, if not stronger.
Okay.
And that the whole caper was a James Bond fantasy gone wrong.
Double okay. Still
okay.
Still crime.
Still crime. And the diagnosis of Asperger's, which is an interesting aside, was from a psychologist who's Sacha Baron Cohen's cousin, so Borat's cousin.
Who is very big in the
In the psychiatrist world?
in that world. Has done a lot of work looking at autism. There's
I did not know that.
There's pushback in various directions.
Speaking of pushback.
Simon Baron Cohen.
A lot of Simon.
Is it Simon Baron Cohen?
I don't know. They didn't give his name. He remained anonymous except for being entirely identified as the cousin of – no, he was known. But a lot of people weren't happy with this whole diagnosis thing. So Johnson, the author of the book that I'll tell you about in a tick, got the only interview with Rist, and he only got one chance at this. And he says – this is quoting him from an interview with the author himself. I say this with no axe to grind against Asperger's. I have people in my extended family who have it. But around the 5 or 6 hour mark of my interview, I have friends, yeah. I have Asperger friends.
Couldn't he just say this guy was tedious?
Yeah, he could.
Like around the 5-6 hour interview, I was sick of this interview, and it's this guy, not all of those people who have. Just,
everyone else is fine.
Could we just not do that?
No. So he says, yeah,
Right.
5th or 6th hour mark of the interview.
Is he just listing one by one each of the birds?
You can imagine, and another bird and a smaller bird. And a bigger. He says, look, I don't want to sound like a jerk. He's saying this to Rist, and I'm not an expert in it, but you don't seem like you have Asperger's. You're not avoiding eye contact. You're clearly reading the subtext of my questions when I ask them. I'm not convinced. And Johnson says, look, he's paraphrasing what he was told by Rist. Basically, he said he became what he needed to become during that phase in his life, that he'd never had any issue with eye contact before or since, just at the time. But that all of a sudden he couldn't look in people's eyes. He started rocking back and forth. He hiked his voice up an octave or so. So to Johnson, he said it's clear he'd gained the system.
Yeah, okay.
During the trial also, Rist claims it was no big deal. Like what he did was no big deal because, look, the Tring's just a dusty old dump and there's nothing left to do with all this crap. It's just sitting in drawers.
Thanks, arsehole.
Yeah, it's just sitting in drawers. Don't worry about it. Yeah, people push back on that. Amazing. Yeah. So, for example, there's a BBC News report. The director of science, Richard Lane, said at the time of the break-in, they formed a part of a collection that had been assembled over roughly 350 years.
Yeah.
They were irreplaceable and literally priceless. And he said they get requests for their collections from researchers and people all over the planet.
There are plenty of museums of all sorts that have stuff that is not on public display, and just going, it's not on public display, so it's just sitting around dusty. I should have it. I should have all of those space. Hidden Picassos.
What if I could buy a flute with it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the former head of ornithology is retired at the time they spoke with him, Robert Preece-Jones. He said that recent research into the feathers from this museum's old collections, 150 years worth of seabird collections, helped demonstrate many things, like rising levels of mercury in the ocean over that period.
Okay, yeah,
which
fair
affects
enough.
not just birds,
fair
but
enough.
affects everyone.
If you've collected them over that time, there you go.
Also, the capacity of the skins to provide new and important information only increases over time, not decreases.
What?
There's more stuff you can find to do more science with them because
you've got a longer comparison.
Better equipment, etc. And it also, these sorts of collections help looking for things like the effects of toxins like DDT on the development of birds.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot you can do about it.
So I didn't believe him anyway. Like I think Rist was lying about
a lot.
Just sitting around gathering dust, but no, there you go.
It worked for him.
They are important.
It's like, what's everyone so mad about? It's just shit in a drawer. Johnson goes on, and the author became inadvertently involved in investigating this stuff because he got so involved in what was going on. And as he put it in a Nat Geo interview again, National Geographic, what animated my whole investigation was that these birds held answers to questions science hadn't even thought to ask yet. And so they had no clue what kind of technologies will exist in the future. Also, basically, Rist, as he put it, blew a huge hole in the scientific record. So that's a bummer.
Thanks, fucker.
How much did they recover?
Not much.
So pessimistic.
It's not much.
Why are you so sad? It's a beautiful day. So there's a bunch of BBC reports around the time of his trial, and they say some of the skins were sold on eBay. They reckon he made about $17,000 US, and he did buy a new flute. But the investigations suggest that maybe 193 out of 299 may have been recovered of the skins, not the feathers.
Okay.
But also, you've got to think about all the Ziploc bags full of loose feathers and fragments and things. In one article, there was evidence that he'd stolen 5 Indian crow breastplates, a flame bowerbird cape, and he'd sliced stuff up some of the exhibits or the samples. He'd severed patches containing some of the most desirable feathers from the original skin, so he'd mangled them. and they were probably thrown away and sitting in landfill somewhere. Like you just cut the bits off and bugger off. So that's a bit shit. And again, Johnson, the author being interviewed, he spoke to Robert Priest-Jones, who we mentioned earlier, and Mark Adams, the senior curator for the Birds Museum collection. He wanted to figure out how many birds are still out there, how many bits are still out in the world. And he said to them, look, have you ever thought about how he managed to get all the birds out logistically, like move them around? And Priest-Jones, who was visibly upset, said, look, I've thought about it a lot. We've got no evidence or knowledge of how he did it other than what he told police. They go on to say, do you think he had an accomplice? He says, well, we're not sure. But as you will know, Priest-Jones says, Rist pleaded guilty. Therefore, they may not have bothered to investigate much further because he said, look, I did it. So they just went, all right, we'll slow down.
But how many did he get again? It was like
the estimate is about
300.
About he got 300, 299. So they got back maybe a two-thirds.
Yeah, okay. So getting them out, I mean, a suitcase can fit 299 birds.
Yeah, but the getting them out is a bit ambiguous. It might have also meant like get them out into the world. Like I'm not really.
Yeah, further afield.
Yeah, it was ambiguous language.
What was his website on the dark web?
Nicked birds for fly time.
Dark feather web.
Yeah. The syndicate of the black feather. So what happened to Edwin? Monsieur Rist. A Smithsonian magazine interview with Johnson, again, this author. Rist never spent a single night in jail. He graduated from the Royal Academy.
Oh, well, congratulations.
I know, right? He's a flutist. He plays the flute with orchestras through Germany under a different name. So he changed that one, Edwin W-R-I-S-T. He also makes heavy metal flute videos. He posted one to YouTube under the name Edwin Reinhardt, and he performed Metallica's Master of Puppets. And I looked it up. This is how cool he looks.
As flute versions of Master of Puppets.
This is just a screenshot from it. So he's wearing the leather and the tank top, and he's trying to.
Hey, is that a bass flute?
Yeah, it's a big ass one with a curl in it.
No, damn.
Yeah, he's going for it.
Look, good on you, buddy. Good on you. You did some crimes
and got away with it.
He caused some
lied about his neurodivergence and mangled some.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about the lying.
Look, Johnson really went into this author, and look, I'll close with this. A quote from Johnson: "When I met him, Rist, I thought he was charming. In another life, we might have been friends. I think he is always the smartest person in the room, and that can be dangerous with the wrong circumstance. So he's a clever bugger. And I often wonder why he agreed to do an interview with me. I think it was partly because he wanted to see how much I knew and if he could outsmart me. So he's an alarmingly talented person who let his obsessions and greed destroy a promising future." Feather flogger.
That's fascinating, though.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, these industries of bizarre little products.
Yeah.
I can understand it. I can understand that you would, in your hobby, you would desire, you desire after that thing that just ticks that box, and you can understand then someone like this who's like, I know how to get them.
Yep.
I know how to get them.
What else am I going to do? I can't play the flute all the time. I've also got to tie my flies.